Hey, Stephen Young here doing the Junkyard Crawl at Bernardston Auto Wrecking in Bernardston, Massachusetts with a 1965 Chevy Malibu two-door hardtop. Now, 65 is the second year for Chevrolet's mid-sized Chevelle and Malibu platform. And you got to keep in mind, these were very strong sellers. In fact, 359,000 Chevelle and Malibu vehicles sold, which is 15% of total Chevrolet production. You got to keep in mind, too, by 1965, Chevelle wasn't the only game in town. Full-size Chevys, Novas, Corvairs, Malibus, Chevelles, and Corvettes. So pretty much a car for every person purpose, as they would say in General Motors management, you could get from your Chevy dealer. Now this one here is a two-door hardtop. Again, the front fender tells us all we have to know. We see the number 230, so we can say goodbye to dreams. This might be a Z16 296. That's the 230, which was the optional six-banger. That has 140 horsepower. The 200 or the 194 base six would have 120 horsepower. Same basic engine, 3 1/4 inch stroke, but 5/16 larger bore on the 230. And a long engine, frankly. It's a good 8 inches or so longer than any small block V8. And you can see how the fan is so much closer to the radiator wall. I mean, this has been crunched, but with that said, this is a long engine. Small block Chevy V8 would be about here back. So these are longer, and they're taller, frankly, than a V8 motor. So they're good basic engines, never sold as a high-performance engine, never with a 2-barrel, never with a 4-barrel, at least not in Chevrolet land. These are always the workhorse engine, but again, 140 horse, get you down the road without any trouble. But the interesting thing that most people forget is that this line of engines arrived, and you could also get it as a 4-cylinder. Here's why. This is Motor Life magazine here from November of '61, forecasting the 62s. That is the new Chevrolet 4-banger. And let's take a closer look. And that engine basically has the same internals. And there it is right there on the right-hand side, the 4 or the 6. They're both from the same basic family. And it says here that smallest of the new engines is a 4-cylinder power plant with 153 cubic inch displacement and rated 90 horsepower. Its big brother, a 6-cylinder, is rated 120 horsepower with 194 cubic inch displacement. With the exception of the bore and the number of cylinders, these engines are strikingly similar in dimensions and components, sharing the same stroke, 3 1/4 inches, and the same big end bearing and wrist pin. The Roger interchangeable bore on the small 4-banger is 3.88, and the 6-cylinder has a 3.56 bore. These are over square engines. The bore is larger than the stroke. And again, that's a very forward design. You know, generally speaking, a short stroke, big bore is a recipe for higher RPM and a little bit of torque down low. But this one here, no V8s. And again, you could get 6-poppers in Malibus, even super sports. As we make our way around the side here, we can see that the cowl tag is still present. And this is an interesting thing right here. I've made boo-boos before in my videos, but here we see this is something from Fisher Body, and this cowl tag would be put onto the car before it was final assembled and the engine was chosen. So we see here 136, which would indicate to some, oh, it's a V8 Malibu. No, this is basically just a code for a Malibu that would then, the engine would be a different thing altogether. So to really find out what engine the car has, don't go by the style code, because that will throw you a curve. The VIN is where you learn what engine. We'll find out about that in a second. With that said, we see here NN, which is Madeira Maroon paint, NN, in other words, the body and the roof, both painted Madeira Maroon, built in Framingham, Massachusetts. Yep, there was a plant here in Massachusetts, several plants, in fact, that were needed to help Chevrolet keep ahead of demand. These cars were very popular, and again, 359,000 Chevelle and Malibu vehicles built in United States plants in '65 alone. Inside, this, of course, is a 2-door Malibu, and you got to keep in mind the Chevelle could be had as a 2-door post with a little more boxy roof, but again, the Malibu was the special version with a hard top. Roll the window down, it's wide open. Let's take a peek inside, and here's the remains of that Madeira Maroon paint in here. And the VIN, we see it here. Now it says 135. So that 5 in the 3rd spot, that means 6-cylinder. 136 would be a V8 car. So again, this is applied after the cowl tag comes on. Because again, the cowl tag is applied to the body, but the body is just that, it's a body. It then goes from Fisher Body Plant to the Chevrolet Final Assembly in Framingham, Mass. In this case, where it then becomes the car it's going to be with whatever engine goes in. And that's reflected on the VIN, not the cowl tag. So don't make the mistake I've made in the past and confuse those two things. This is a 6-cylinder car from day one. And it is a column shifted power glide, nothing too sexy here. You could get a 3-speed manual with your 6-banger, but this is the power glide, 2-speed. I believe a cast aluminum case in 1965, nice and light. Drag racers like power glides, but keep in mind it's not an ideal transmission for general street use because you don't have a passing gear and the engine goes from first into second. You know, you waste a lot of gas, to be honest. And again, the power glide arrived in the early 1950s as a simple, inexpensive to make and buy automatic in a world where more expensive GM cars had a 4-speed hydromatic. So the power glide kind of is a relic from older thinking, but they made them well into the early 1970s, a 2-speed power glide. Drag racers like them, but only on engines that have really high RPM capabilities that don't need to make a bunch of shifts going down a quarter-mile drag strip. So power glides have a place in drag racing, but not really in performance, or at least normal performance. Inside, this one was a bench seat car. We don't see any signs of a console in the middle. The transmission hump does not have brackets, so this was a basic family mobile, 6-passenger, bench front, bench back. And again, as a two-door hardtop, this, before the rust set in, would have made a fantastic all-turd wheelbase match racer. You know, I'm a big fan of the funny cars, you know, Grady Bryant's Something Else, Tom Sturm's Just for Chevy Lovers, of course, the Palomino, the Wood Brothers car, even the Seaton Shaker. Again, they were all based on 64 and 5 Chevelles. Dickie Harrell had a really killer match race car. What you do with those things is you separate the body from the frame, you take the frame and you shove the rear axle forward by sectioning the frame, and then you make the same change to the body and you move the wheel opening as far forward as you can, and voila, instant funny car. And what that whole thing did was put more static and dynamic weight on the rear tire so that when the light comes down, you hit the gas, the injected 396 and 4-speed would plant the slicks, you'd be on your way. Whereas with a standard wheelbase, with maybe 48% of the weight on the back and more on the front, you just go up in smoke when you dump the clutch. Well, funny cars were built for traction, and they looked funny. That's why they call them funny cars. But this would be a fantastic little funny car. Again, a little too far gone, this one here. But in the trunk, we can see that Mama Nature has done her work and totally done away with anything resembling metal. Somebody has, look, the rear panel here has basically become a swing set right here. But here's the remains of the old frame. There's the top of the gas tank right here. And there's the gas tank, somebody's old blanket that probably did more to keep the rust in and cause rust than anything else. But that's the top of the gas tank. And here's the 10-bolt rear axle right here. And a lot of people say, what is that rib? Is that a deformation? Did the guy hit a rock or something? Nope, that's actually a channel that's pressed into the cover of the 10-bolt and the 12-bolt. The ring gear sprays oil up and it then trails down inside to the carrier bearings on each side. So that deformation is not a damage indicator, but it's rather designed in to provide sure oil to the carrier bearings on the side without the need for any other kind of plumbing. So yeah, 1965, 2-year cycle, 64 and 5 for this body style. Some say this is the cleanest, leanest, meanest Chevelle of them all. 66 had a little more bloated, cool looking car, but with 64 and 5, these were very popular with match racers because again, they're the smallest expression of the full body on frame Chevy A-body platform, 1965 Chevelle Malibu. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Mag's YouTube channel. Tell your friends, share this video, and by all means ring the bell so that you're alerted to the next video which comes out tomorrow morning.